Hey guys, it's Tate. Wanted to talk about win conditions in today's episode of BazaarU. Win conditions are how you're going to get your wins each day. It's kind of a concept that comes up in many different games, but ultimately it's how do you build your board together so that it's synergistic and accomplishing a common objective. So win conditions are important to think about because in the Bazaar, you need your whole board basically dedicated to your win condition. If you spread yourself out too thin with many different win conditions, they don't multiply on each other and you're going to fall behind on the power curve. So you really want to make sure that when you're building your board, you're focusing on how does this add to my win condition. And so in Vanessa, there are six like really simplistic win conditions you can think about, and I'm going to cover each of those real quick. So with the weapons win condition, you just want a bunch of weapons that have a bunch of damage. So it sounds simple, but having a katana with the shark claws is a really good two-piece combo that we can just think about real quick. So the katana is going to attack every 2 seconds, and on its own, it's going to just do 5, 10, or maybe 15 damage. But if you have a shark claws going with it, the shark claws, when it goes off, will give your other weapons more damage. So now your katana is going to do even more damage if it's paired with the shark claw. Now there are other skills, weapons, etc. that will add to this, but the concept of the weapons win condition is you're using weapons to deal raw damage to your opponent, and you want to gain as much damage on those weapons as possible to kill them as quickly as possible. Now, burn is another win condition here. So you can use a lighter, a volcanic vents, but the goal with burn is to stack as much burn as possible on your opponent. The way burn works is when you add a burn to your opponent, like 3 burn, for example, it'll do 3 damage, and then it'll lower to 2 damage, and then 1 damage. So the burn kind of falls off. So if you just had a single lighter, it'll do 3 damage, 2 damage, 1 damage, and then there'll be no burn on your opponent. And then if it gets used again, it'll 3, 2, 1. But if you pair it with another item with burn, let's say the lighter does 3 damage, or 3 burn, and then the vents does 3 burn plus 3 burn plus 3 burn. Now you've got 12 burn, so it'll do 12 damage, 11 damage, 10 damage. So stacking burn to a high number is incredibly important so that it stays on your opponent and it just does more damage the higher the amount of burn you have. So when you're going for a burn win condition, typically it's best just to have everything focused on just applying burn to kill them as fast as possible. All right, now with poison, poison is going to apply to your opponent, and the amount of poison isn't going to lower like burn does. It just does, 3 poison will do 3 damage every second. But if you add more poison, of course, it's going to do more damage. So the objective with poison is to stack it on your opponent, but it kind of does its damage slower than burn would, for example. So a possible way to support this win condition would be to build defensive on the rest of your board. But this example here, the catfish is going to do poison. It does 3 poison every 5 seconds. But when it's hasted, it gains additional poison. So sometimes if you pair it with a fishing rod early, that'll be really strong. The fishing rod will not only give this more poison, but it'll speed it up by hasting it. So this is a little 1-2 punch in the poison win condition, but ultimately poison's objective is to apply poison and, stall. So Vanessa has ammo items, and there's an ammo win condition where you just have as much ammo as possible and you burst your opponent down really fast. So this item, Pistol Sword, is a primary piece in that win condition. It says when you use an ammo item, deal damage, and then you pair that with other ammo items like Shuriken, for example, which it when it's used, it uses all of its ammo, and so it does a ton of damage really fast. So if it has 5 ammo, it'll trigger 5 times, and that means the pistol sword will trigger 5 times. So when you have the ammo win condition going, it's similar to the burn where you just want as many ammo items on your board as possible. Now, you could scale damage however you want. You could add, like a figurehead to give your whole board extra damage. So it's a little bit of mix and matching, but the whole concept behind ammo is kill your opponent in a single burst because ammo items, don't reload on their own. There are ways to do that, but typically they're kind of one and done, and they're balanced around their single use. So ammo is all about just bursting the opponent, killing them before the fight goes very long. All right, now there's a lot of items that scale with haste. So Shark Ray is an item that says when you haste, this gains damage for the fight. And then you could pair that with a beach ball, which is going to haste your aquatic items. So what this is doing is the beach ball will speed both of them up, and it'll give the Shark Ray more damage over time. So this win condition is all about getting haste triggers um, and using that to scale up your weapon. All right, lastly, there's a slow win condition. So this Mantis Shrimp says when you slow, gain damage and burn for the fight, and then an Eluso Ray paired with it, for example, this will slow multiple times, adding the damage to the Mantis Shrimp, adding the burn, allowing your Mantis Shrimp to get really large and do a lot of damage. So the win conditions here are, very fundamental, just building blocks. There's so many different ways to enable all of these win conditions, and sometimes your board's going to go absolutely crazy with many different win conditions. But it's very important when you're first learning the Bazaar to just think about, okay, which win condition am I in? And let me focus my entire board around that. So, maybe you have to have a whole board dedicated to poison, or maybe your whole board's dedicated to ammo, or you find a way to get a ton of haste triggers to, make your Shark Ray as big as possible. But keeping a win condition in mind is incredibly important for having success in the Bazaar. All right, thank you very much. Hope you learned something today. I appreciate it.